All right. First of all, while we're waiting to get like officially started, it's nuts. Like I woke up, looked at my phone, and the first thing that popped up was like a thing about AI, and it's like 6 different screenshots of robots doing various things. So one was like a robot at a warehouse, like loading boxes onto the conveyor belt, and then it's going up or what. I've seen that one before. And then there was one with a robot that was actually holding a camera, like in a green screen setting with a car, and like doing the different angles of the camera and like walking around the car, like a professional, like film guy would do. And then the one that really blew my mind was there was a robot that was cracking and seasoning and scrambling eggs for breakfast, like in real time. And I was like, what? I've never seen that one. And there was a couple others, but it was all about like AI, robots, and automation. And like that was the first thing I woke up to today. So I thought it was kind of fitting, about to jump into this webinar.
Very fitting.
Anyway, 4 minutes past the hour. Let's go ahead and get started. Just be respectful of people's time. Good morning, everyone. My name is Burke Anderson. I'm Director of Channel Partnerships for Netsmartz. We are a global managed service provider, IT services provider. And thank you all for joining us today. So this is a kind of a closed leadership discussion. And we intentionally kept it that way so that we can be open, talk about real world challenges, and rather than these public forums where you want to be careful about what you really talk about, we want to kind of get into the meat of what leaders really care about in those outcomes as well, that we're all accountable as leaders in the AI space. So just to set expectations at the start, this session is not going to be about us selling our solutions, or we're joined by Pax8. It's not about products, tools, or platforms. It's like I said, it's a leadership discussion, execution realities, and how organizations are navigating right now. So Netsmartz is hosting this today. My role is to moderate this discussion and have a nice open discussion. Along with me, we're joined by a partner thought leader in Chance Weaver. He's VP of AI adoption at Pax8, or senior VP or VP. Anyway, he leads AI adoption at Pax8. Sorry about these notifications. And along with me from the Netsmartz side is Parth Gargish. He's EVP of Growth and AI at Netsmartz, and he's had many public speaking engagements, including a TED Talk around AI. You can find that on YouTube. In fact, I have the link somewhere. I could share it right now on chat. But we appreciate him joining us as well. So at the end, we're going to leave some time for Q&A and open discussion. But if you have any thoughts throughout this presentation, feel free to chat those over, and we can address them in real time as they come through, or else we'll address them at the end. So with that context, let's start by why this conversation matters right now. So let me just throw this in there. First and foremost, let me just share some personal experiences with AI outside of work. So I just talked about the robot stuff just now, but 2 weeks ago, I saw this movie clip of Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. They were like fighting on a rooftop, and I swear it was like real. I thought I was watching a trailer for a new movie. Like, yes, these guys are getting together again. That's going to be amazing. And it was all AI, but it looked super real. And then there was like, drama about it in Hollywood. Oh, we're going to lose our jobs or whatever. So I thought that was kind of wild. Last weekend, I decided to bake my own roast at home. And I did it for like, I don't know, 225 for like 4 hours. And I pulled the roast out. The potatoes were still hard and the meat wasn't done. I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I opened up ChatGPT and I'm like, here's my situation. I'm using this style oven. It's not done yet. And then ChatGPT said, well, tell me more. Like, what do the potatoes look like? What type of oven is it? Blah, blah, blah. And I answer less, like, no problem. Turn it up to 325 for another 45 minutes and then let me know. And then I did. And it was like, well, now it's like this. And then she said, oh, no problem there. 30 more minutes like this, and then I put the thing out, and it was perfect. It was like the best roast I've ever created in my life using ChatGPT. So that was wild as well. And then just my own personal usage with Claude. So I've been using Claude personally for about a year and a half. And I first started using it when I was having kind of work transition. I was starting to do some consulting for myself. And it was crazy how helpful it was in multiple areas of organization, of helping me with presentations, of research. And I've been using it pretty much ever since. Just the last like month, 2 months even, a lot has changed like so much, and it can do so much more, and it's so much more efficient. So it's just crazy for like the advancements that are happening, even with these tools everybody is using. Um, I even built, sorry about all these notifications. I don't know how to turn them off. But anyway, I even started to build a functional app without any coding experience whatsoever using Claude. I'm not kidding. I'm not a developer. I'm a sales business guy. And it worked. And I was like, what? I mean, it took me like a week of back and forth and like pasting code and saying, I don't even know what this screen is. And like, so it really had to like walk me through. But within a few hours, I had built a functional app. So that's personal. That's a personal side. So why does this conversation matter now? Well, I think I'm not alone. A lot of people are using AI in their everyday lives in all sorts of areas, right? And it's happening in the business world especially. So when we speak with executives today, the tone around conversation, it's shifted noticeably, right? So there's different reasons why companies are engaging, why business is engaging in AI. Everybody's been talking about AI for years now, right? 5 or especially the past 3 years, but it's go time. If you aren't actually engaging and enabling and executing AI within your organization, you're way behind the 8 ball. So different pressures are driving this, right? So the first signal is board pressure. Boards are, nobody's asking why this matters anymore. They're asking, what are you doing? How is it being used? How are we getting lean? What's working? The second is budget scrutiny. Leaders are being asked to justify spend in terms of outcomes, not just experimentation. And the tolerance for experimentation is shrinking and going away. The third signal is going to be risk. AI is tied to security exposure, compliance obligations, brand trust, and customer impact. And these risks are not just theoretical anymore. There's real risks. And we're seeing that most organizations plan to increase AI spend in 2026, especially. Like it's happening right now like crazy. And by 2030, there's half of the tools and systems within organizations are going to be automated, and that's a conservative kind of projection. So basically this session is here because leaders are being asked to move faster, carrying more responsibility with less room for error, in summary. So I think we've already talked about what this session is and is not, but before we go further, I just want to spell it out. This is a peer level discussion. We assume everyone here understands strategic importance. We're all leaders in this call. It's a closed call. The importance of AI, modern operation models, etc. We're focused on practical leadership insight here. This means we're going to talk honestly about what's breaking, not just what looks good on paper. And this is going to be very outcome focused as well. We're not here to debate platforms, compare tools. I'm sorry, I just talked about GPT and Claude, but we're not here to like pitch and do commercials for other tools here. So let's get into it. The executive reality check. So I think this is where Chance and Parth are going to be able to weigh in and give some good insight. So let's talk about the reality most AI initiatives run into today. So the programs that I see, I have a lot of conversations about AI right now. So Netsmartz, we're an AI company, AI forward. We've been around for 26 years. We've been doing AI since 2016, so 10 years now. And we have a lot of live AI products and tools in production. So, I have a lot of conversations about AI. So a lot of programs I'm seeing have strong momentum. pilots get approved, teams get energized. Early results look promising, but really it gets stuck in the execution. Things slow down when ownership becomes unclear. Risk questions surface, decision making stalls, delivery timelines stretch, et cetera, et cetera. What we see is not a failure of tech in most cases. It's a failure of transition. There's also the excuse me, didn't mean to go past that slide. There's also kind of leadership involvement. Like it's there initially, but let's get this. Then it decreases as the project launch. And then there's the human resistance factor as well, right? Like I think everybody knows AI is here. Everybody knows it, but I think there's still, especially from like the worker level, you know, the mid-tier employees, and especially the entry level employees, they're resistant still, right? You know, and also like the fear of AI. Like think about Terminator 2, The Matrix. Think about the movies Megan. Like all the stuff, how AI takes over, gets out of hand, out of control. So I think there's a fear from like I might lose my job, and also a fear of the unknown and unexpected. So there's a human issue as well, I think, with failures in AI. But I'm going to open this up to you guys. Chance, I'll start with you. What are you seeing?
Yeah, it's thanks, Burke, and it's kind of interesting. You know, I would say right now there's kind of a FOMO moment with AI. Hey, you know, fear of missing out. Like, what I need to implement something, and what does that mean? And I think that's kind of why you see a lot of initiatives fail. What are you trying to fix? We can go into the humanity side of that and the automation and will that replace people? I don't even think that's the case. I think it's going to solve things that have been a headache for a long time and make people incredibly more efficient. And I think it's going to, I think, you know, I'm optimistic about AI, obviously with my title and driving AI adoption, it makes sense, but I'm kind of excited about what it can do if we do it the right way. And you have a lot of partners that come in and they say, hey, we have to fix all of your data and we need to clean everything up before we can start having a conversation about AI. And you know, then we start diving into business process and what does that look like? And here's the interesting thing: if you look at a problem, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the one that hits the bottom line the most. Look at a problem that maybe you can tackle the quickest, that you can get a quick win at. And then you only have to worry about the data that relates to that business process. You don't have to transform all of your data, just the data that relates to that particular business process. You don't have to license everyone in the organization, just the people that are involved in that particular business process. And you know by fixing that problem what the ROI is going to be. Does it mean you can scale without adding more people? Does it mean you can fix a customer service problem you haven't been able to historically fix and you're bleeding customers because of it? And you can put a dollar amount around that process before you even start the project, and then measure against that as you build it out. Those quick wins really drive the AI conversation, and then it's a snowball effect. Oh crap, we fixed that. What's the next thing we can tackle? You know, now do we want to tackle some of the bigger things? It's not always the thing that hits the bottom line the most. Sometimes it's the thing that's the easiest to fix quickly that might add the most value.
I love that. Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, I think, you know, I mean, bang on. So I think there are two components to it. I mean, right now, how things are, you know, kind of turning out. One is, of course, your workforce, you know, your people who are, you know, they're working with you within the organization. So, Burke, to your point, because you were earlier mentioning that, you know, people are scared that AI is going to replace them. You know, I always say this, that it is not AI which is, you know, going to replace any workforce. It is more about workforce which do not use AI are going to get replaced, right? So it's AI is not replacing anything. AI has been around since forever. It's just that it became a household name once OpenAI and OpenAI and ChatGPT, you know, became a
But
household
Parth,
name.
if I want AI to replace me, is that okay? Because I want to retire. So is that cool? We good with that?
Yeah,
I mean, or you collecting your salary, but you're like on vacation or whatever.
Yeah, as long as you're collecting your salary, I think no one would mind that. But yeah, I mean, uh, on the other side of things, I think one is that, of course, I mean, A is that everyone needs to be well equipped that what AI can do for them, and then taking advantage of that. That means trying to find out what is relevant, what is not relevant. To Chance's point, what he's trying to say here is that uh, you know uh, it's more about what would work for yourself, right? I mean, one is that implementing AI because of the FOMO thing going on, that I don't want to miss out on something. But is AI really the answer, or I mean, is your organization even AI ready? Because getting there, becoming an AI ready organization is also one thing. I mean, you can implement all the tools in the world, but if you do not have substantial data, or maybe in a structured format, or your data is all over the place, and I mean, it's present in silos, and you don't have any structuring around it, no warehouses, no lakes. I mean, how can you make intelligent information out of it? And you can put on top wrapper of AI whatever you want to, but you will not get anything out of it. So it is very important that how you crafting your AI journey as a business, or as an organization, right? And that is where I think uh, that is where you need to invest most of your time and money, to get better ROIs. So
Yeah,
so
we're actually going to get into the data side of things a lot more, and the investment side of things. But to your point, Parth, organizationally, let's talk about the leadership side of things. Why is it important for leaders to get involved? Why is it important for them to stay involved? And where are leaders getting it wrong when it comes to the leadership component of AI adoption?
Yeah, so I think I mean, I'll share our experience when we were embarked on a journey of making Netsmartz as an AI first organization, or I have been involved in other organizations' roadmaps as well over the last course of years. I think leaders need to get involved in terms of making sure that from the top to the bottom line, everyone understands that why AI is getting implemented, and I mean, how you're going to implement, what is the roadmap. Your workforce needs to be completely engaged. Sometimes what I have seen is that leaderships and boards, they start implementing AI, maybe get a third party, but do not keep their workforce involved, and that creates a lot of insecurity, to your point, for jobs, and it does not get 100% commitment from the organization as a whole, and that is where you see things falling off the cracks, right? And second is that I mean, articulating that what are you trying to achieve, like I was earlier saying, right? I mean, and I think that is exactly, I'm echoing the same thing what Chance mentioned a few minutes back, that I mean, maybe automation is the answer, and you don't want to put it out as a fancy wrap of AI. Maybe you just want to automate things first, and then try to drive some AI output, or maybe then go from there, because there's a very thin line between automation and AI and data analytics and those side of things, right? Everything works in a different way, but there is an overlap, right? So you do not need to kind of get trapped in the overlap, but then try to figure out that what exactly is going to work for you, as in terms of getting returns of investments, right? And that is where businesses are falling short over last 2 years, because of this race of getting ahead in the space of AI. But are you really making substantial use cases, or are use cases actually seeing the light of the other side of the tunnel? So that is I think one important piece which the business and leadership team needs to kind of look into. But I mean, Chance, I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, literally agree with everything that you say. And by the way, if you haven't seen Parth's TED Talk or seen him speak, one of the smartest people I've ever had a chance to interact with. Highly recommend it. But to your point, I think that it gets even worse the more complex the organization is. And I can kind of talk a little bit about what Pax8 went through from an AI transformation standpoint. So I've only been at Pax8 for a little over 8 months now. And when I came on board, they were already in this like full 100-mile-an-hour move towards AI. And they were trying to implement different tool sets across different divisions. And they were trying to give people access to data and aggregate all these things. not for the purpose of fixing anything, just because they thought that everybody should be implementing AI and fixing their business processes without any guidance on what that really meant. And I think that's the danger in this journey is focus. Focus on one thing if you have to. Don't and fix the one thing and then move on to the next thing rather than trying to do everything at the same time. Like I kind of mentioned that FOMO moment, you know, you're like, oh, the board comes down saying we need AI because our competitors are talking about AI, and if we don't implement this right now, we're going to lose. Doesn't work that way. Implementing AI without any strategy or without any true execution is a road to a lot of money wasted and complete failure, and you get nothing out of it. It was interesting how Pax8 had to pull back, readjust, work on very specific use cases that and made an incredible difference. I mean, we're implementing AI at scale now, but it's about building around business cases, very specific outcomes, and we're putting the right tool sets in place to make sure that we're gaining those outcomes and we're able to measure it. And I think that's what you need to do in your organization, measuring against what you're trying to achieve. And then, you know, not trying to chase a million rabbits, just chase the one rabbit.
Yeah, I love that. And how important is it for, you know, your leaders and for your teams to be in sync when you're implementing these things? Like, are they informed? You know, is that a critical component of this as well?
Absolutely. I think accountability is key. You know the numbers, know exactly what you're trying to achieve, and then make sure that you're putting the right team in place and enabling them to do what they need to do. And then if they don't do it, hold them accountable. You know what I mean? Make sure, like, it's kind of interesting. I've seen this. I've had the perspective of working at a very small organization, growing that organization, selling it, working at a very, very large organization, and now I'm at a global organization. And seeing that different perspective and how it works. You know, if I don't do my job at Pax8, I expect to be fired. Right? You know, I think it needs to work like that. Like hold people accountable. Accountability in ownership is very critical in these types of transformations. And I'm not going to be fired. I'm going to crush this, but
right.
You know, it's super important to make sure that you know the numbers, you know what you're trying to achieve, you're working towards that, and that there's an accountability factor that's involved in it.
And I think that's huge. I'll just share a personal insight. So I used to work for one of the biggest distributors around, not Pax8. I'm not going to name names, but not Pax8. You can go look at my LinkedIn profile. Anyway, they implemented this huge platform, AI platform, about 5 years ago, I believe, that was supposed to automate everything. And they're still using it today. It's probably awesome. I don't use it. It's probably killing it now because of all the advancements in AI. But when I was there several years ago, it was like forced on everybody, right? Everybody was forced to use it. Nobody knew like the clear directive. Nobody knew how to engage with it. And it would, I would talk to,
What's the why?
Yeah, I would talk to partners. I'd talk to end users, and they'd all be like, this tool is hard to use. Some people would like it. They say some things are good, but it was hard to use. It was breaking. It was difficult. And the reason why, and then we'd go to these big, huge conferences with all the biggest tech leaders everywhere, and they preach from the pulpits, we're using this platform, use this platform, everybody. And then it's like, but there was no like down to the employee level, like strategy, engagement, accountability. And so it was difficult for the couple of years I was there. And I'm sure it's all fixed and resolved today. Big disty out there. Good job. But what I'm saying is, like, if the leaders don't involve the workers and there's not accountability across the board, those things will fail, right? So it's important to involve everybody to make sure the strategy is clear and for leadership to stay involved throughout and to get the managers on the same page as the directors and the VPs and above, right? So I think that's critical. So let's move on to the next slide here. What's actually working? I think we kind of talked about this, but I think you've already added your perspectives of what you're seeing in the field. But you know, let's talk about how different platforms like Microsoft can help when AI is embedded into existing environments, like Copilot, for example. Other platforms where IBM becomes critical as AI decisions start affecting compliance, explainability and risk exposure, how you can wrap and loop in open source tools, LLMs, etc., with defined guardrails, governance. Let's talk about these different things, different technologies and tools. Parth, any thoughts here?
Yeah, I think, as a services organization, or as a consultant, I'm not married to a particular technology, and I've never been married to a particular technology or platform or framework ever. I think what I really look into, when I'm speaking to any customer, or maybe I'm speaking to a friend who is looking for any help, is more around what does the requirement look like and what would fit the bill there. So I think all the technologies, all the frameworks, all the platforms are great, right? And whether you talk about Microsoft, if let's say that you're an organization, a complete Microsoft shop, a complete Microsoft-driven architecture, infrastructure, why would you want to get into any other framework, right? Because you don't want to break the ecosystem. So probably that is where you need to see that what would fit your requirement. Maybe Copilot or Azure AI as a whole is your answer, right? And if you're not a Microsoft-driven organization, and maybe you already have platforms, or your databases are more open source, then you might want to look into some open source LLMs out there. So I would say that it all depends on what, again, again, revolving around the same fact, what does your business need? So if you're, because you named Microsoft, let's say that you have all your data present on SharePoint drives, you have Azure as your primary cloud infrastructure, then Copilot and Azure AI is probably the answer. When you're implementing any of your AI roadmaps, you want probably your dashboarding to be Power BI oriented, or maybe Fabric is your answer when it comes to data, right? So it is not, I would say every technology is kind of speeding in the right direction. And then of course there are different handshakes which are always there between Microsoft, or talk about IBM and Microsoft, or AWS, and you can always achieve those handshakes.
AI, right? Like handshakes with open.
Yeah, 100%. So it is all dependent on that. Okay, what are you trying to achieve at the end of the day, right? And what is your business goal? What is your technology goal? Where do you want to see yourself in next 3 to 4 years as a business, or as a technology infrastructure, right? And that is what is going to kind of count. And of course, governance and compliance is one major factor as we are progressing, because if you Burke, you talk about Matrix and you talk about Terminator, right? Look at 2 years back, when actually ChatGPT was fairly new. It was a new introduction to everyone out here. We have come a long way from that particular time in just a short span of 2 years, that there are so many compliances. At this point, if you upload, let's say, you're trying to upload a legal document and you're trying to forge it around on any of these platforms, it gives you a notification immediately that I cannot do that, which was fairly not that reasonably advanced 2 years back, when we were just experimenting with these LLMs and these chats, right? So all these governance policies, compliance, and that is where I think it makes a lot of difference. You can code, on Claude, or you can generate your own code. But where I see where the industry is actually going is that, you cannot eliminate a human out of the whole picture, because there will still be security cracks. There will still be issues, which that code might have, as a larger business. You don't want information to slip through cracks, and then because it's just one fine day, you'll just wake up and you'll see that, oh my god, my servers are kind of prone to hackers, right? Or maybe I lost this information, and then you see $1 million suit coming your way. So you don't want to get into those situations, and that is where still human talent and human intelligence is still required, because at the end of the day, it's humans who created AI, right? So we should, yeah.
That's kind of a good bridge to the next point, and we're getting close on time, so I want to get to this next point.
Yeah.
But human piece and the talent piece, the expert piece, the person who's really accepted AI, and who's learned, and who's certified, and who understands and create and can make sure that the governance and compliance is there. So some companies don't have this, especially if you're SMB, mid-size, even like low-level enterprise, they might have a VP of AI, but maybe they don't have multiple layers of different AI architects, AI engineers, AI directors, AI designers, or whatever to execute the AI they want to execute. And this is where platforms don't execute on their own, just like Parth was saying. People do, pods do. So that's why I want to get into this kind of pod-based delivery model that some companies are doing out there. We're one of them, by the way. But people who have experts on staff that can come in and augment or supplement and help organizations get there faster. So let's kind of talk a little bit about the importance of having people that can execute. And Chance, were you going to say something there?
No, I think there's so many things I want to say. Like
Go ahead.
piggyback off of what Parth said. You talk about like basically embedding engineers to basically deliver AI, and some of the things that we're talking about from this pod perspective, being able to deploy solutions inside of an organization, super critical. Organizations don't have the scale or capability to do it themselves, and if they try to, they're kind of missing the boat because there's organizations out there that are so far ahead that can kind of help them and do it for them. And I think it's really important to utilize those resources and really, from an organizational standpoint, what the people in this room need to really think about is, what are we trying to solve? How do we fix it? And then how do we partner with someone to bring in the right people to be able to deliver on that and be able to implement that? You don't need to have AI engineers or data scientists on staff. There's a lot of organizations out there like Netsmartz that have those types of resources that can be able to be the delivery model for you on some incredibly cool things that you want to do, but you got to know what you want to do, and you got to focus. And that's the super critical piece to all of this. And you talk about the humanity factor. It's really interesting. I love, Parth, what you said about there's no way you're going to be able to pull people out of it. And I totally agree with that. I think there's going to be a digital workforce that's out there that exists that will get rid of a lot of the work that people hate to do and enable people to be more creative and more structured and more specialized in their job function and really make a difference where before they were dragged into the weeds. I think AI is an ability for us to get out of the weeds and really look at things from a job perspective, an organizational perspective, and really make some critical improvements and decisions to help train the AI and guide the AI to be better. So it's going to be really interesting how this plays out, and I'm excited about it. But just my advice is focus, pick something that you want to fix, and then partner with somebody who can come in and really be the delivery model for you. You don't need to do it yourselves.
That's great. We only have about 9 minutes left. So before we get further into this, Ravina, are there any questions from the audience in the chat yet? Or does anybody want to come off mute and add their insight before we get further? If not, that's okay. I just wanted to pause and give that opportunity. Okay, I'm going to assume that's a no. So let's just keep going here. So I think we've talked about a lot of this already. So let's get into what good looks like then, guys. Obviously, efficient AI execution. We talked about that. The right governance and compliance, leadership, accountability, sustainable delivery rhythm. So I think we've kind of talked about all those first three. But and Chance, you actually talked about this. Focus on fewer high quality and AI initiatives. Enabling consistent delivery versus trying to do too many things at once, right? So I guess we did kind of hit on all this. But any thoughts jump out to you, Parth, as we think about what good actually looks like?
Well, I think, we've, like I said, the traditional ways of software development, life cycle and where we are right now has considerably changed, or if not changed, I would say, it's advanced. Earlier, conceiving NVIDIA was not a major challenge. It was more about, execution. Right now, execution is also fairly doable at an MVP standpoint, but having a full-blown productized business is still a beast, right? Which you cannot do it alone, and that is what I've always encouraged people on that. Okay, I mean, you've got a POC, you built it with AI, great, right? But then if you want to take it out to a productized business world, and you want to drive some real business out of it, right? That is where you need right support, you need the right talent, you need the right framework, right? And again, echoing what Lance just mentioned, that I mean, it's all about focusing on fewer but high quality AI initiatives, which can actually drive some business. Because at the end of the day, I mean, whether you like it or not, or anyone says whatever, but it's all about getting cash flows in, because you cannot survive for long if you do not have those cash flows. And that can only happen if your business is actually building you some ROIs. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it.
I appreciate it. So let's jump into this kind of final topic here. Um, you've heard what we've had to say. Let's say you want to take that first step. How would you go about doing that? So obviously there's assessments that need to take place, strategy. A lot of this is probably happening already on a high leadership level in your organization. But the one piece that you mentioned earlier, Parth, that we want to spend a little bit of time on is this data readiness component. Yes, leaders need to be engaged and involved. Yes, there needs to be a clear plan in place, good strategy. But how important is data readiness in that first part, Parth? Or Chance? Chance, go ahead.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I would say that obviously data readiness is critical, period. Like, period, end of sentence. But and I will say but the idea is, what are you trying to accomplish, and how much data do you need to be able to fix, to clean up, to get ready for AI? And if you're going to use something like Copilot, where you just want to give your people, and it's really hard to see what the ROI is on Copilot. You're definitely going to save some time. You're definitely, and it's going to be meaningful. I mean, we use Copilot heavily at PAX 8, and it's very meaningful. Our data is very structured. It's all in SharePoint. Like, everything is very cleaned up and organized and tagged, and so we went through the process, and so we're getting some meaningful use and measurable outcomes out of using something like Copilot. Or are you building an agent to resolve a very specific task, and then it's a smaller subset of data? So you got to kind of look at it from an organizational perspective on what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to gain, and then attack it from that standpoint. But either way, period, end of story, the data that you're using for AI needs to be organized, cleaned, tagged, and it needs to be compliant.
100%. And Parth, I know I cut you off from talking about that earlier, but do you want to get deeper into that on just the data alone, or?
No, I think I mean, we've covered enough on that, but of course, data is critical, like Chance was mentioning. But what I've seen sometimes, businesses and leaders, they don't see the low hanging there. I mean, they are like, they get involved into more complex stuff. But I mean, there are ways to implement AI which can kind of indirectly contribute towards your ROIs, and that is more on efficiency, right? I mean, maybe your workforce is spending a lot of time which on tasks which are not I mean, not, or which can be easily automated, right? And I mean, and those are like efficiency gains. And I mean, it doesn't mean that you get rid of a workforce, but what you're trying to do here is that you try to engage them on more efficient stuff, which can contribute towards direct source of revenues, rather than spending time on tasks which are actually which can be easily automated, but I mean, they're spending a lot of time on those. So if you actually start thinking about AI from efficiency as well as automation standpoint, I think that business leaders can find a lot of use cases which they can implement easily, right? And without a lot of hassle, and with minimal data requirements. But of course, you need data to train the AI. Even if you have pointed out an executive assessment here, but I mean, let's say that even if you're trying to build uh, a basic assistant, for human resource function, or your HRBP function, right? I mean, there's so many tickets which, larger organizations of 1,000 employees plus kind of a scenario they get, on regular basis on human payrolls, and then, taxes and accounting teams get a lot of tickets, and, their SLAs which cannot be met. Now, let's say you automate those business functions and free up your, HR business partners from those side of things, and then maybe engage them something which is really, going to contribute towards making your organization probably, a highly driven organization towards people and culture, and focus on that so that your workforce is actually, is being taken care of from your HRBPs, right? So you have to think it like that, what can I automate? What can AI really do for me? Not just from direct monetary gains, but also from efficiency standpoint, and enable my workforce to do, better tasks in shorter span of time.
That's great. A lot of good insight there. So since we're almost on time, I just want to, we talked about a lot of different things, from Copilot to custom models, and everything all around AI. If I want to execute in my organization, and I don't know if I have the right strategy, or I don't know if I have the right people, a good next step would be the kind of focused workshop. There's various companies that do that. We do that, where we can focus on priorities, operating models, measurable outcomes. I just talked to a hospital that's a heavy Microsoft shop, and they're not even using Copilot today, and they don't know how. So we're helping them with that. So it could just be one thing specifically, or it could be let's look at everything together. But a workshop would help with that. And then also the follow-up and the leaders staying like engaged throughout, would be pretty critical throughout the process of execution in AI. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on like workshops or ongoing peer follow-ups, when it comes to executing AI, but we're kind of at the end here. So
I think workshops are it's a great next step if you don't know what to do, to like kind of like do some thought around some of the things that we're talking about, getting really focused, finding measurable outcomes, really determining ways that you can implement AI in your organization in a meaningful way. And there's so many great examples out there that I love Parth. I love what you said. Like I love being on a webinar with you just because it's like we're it's like we're thinking the same way, speaking the same language. Some of the things that organizations deal with, I just dealt with an organization that, large organization, they had two people that were getting invoices for hundreds of different vendors. And it was a manual process implementing this into their ERP. They were taking these things, plugging them in. There was manual mistakes. Vendors weren't getting paid on time because of that. And it wasn't huge. It was a small percentage, but it was there was an error percentage in there that existed. We were able to implement AI, get rid of that percentage, and guess what? There was two people that were moved out of a job that they both hated into another position that they enjoyed, and that whole entire process was automated with like a 99.6% efficiency rate. It's just awesome. Little things like that. Like there's so much low-lying fruit that you can implement AI and really make it. And they hated that job. They couldn't stand it. And it was really cool. They were so excited about doing something else. They didn't even care what it was. But you probably could have put a mop in their hands and they would have been excited about it. That's how bad that job sucked. So think about some of the things that AI can do for your organization, that low-lying fruit that Parth was talking about. And if you don't know, that's where having some of those workshops, it can be the kickstart to really drive that for you.
Appreciate that. So we're at the very end. We have 1 minute left. Does anybody want to come off mute that's listening in, and any thoughts? Feel free. No pressure. Did I hear someone? So I guess we can leave it there then. If anybody does want to get in touch, feel free. You can reach out to me directly or Parth directly. It's firstname.lastname@netsmartz.com. If you want to reach out to sales, you can. It will just end up getting to us eventually anyway. But we'd love to chat. If you guys have additional thoughts, you want to talk strategically about AI initiatives in your company, even without using our tools. I know that Parth's always excited to talk about AI. I'm not trying to speak for you, Chance, but I would imagine you would be the same, especially with the C-level, VP level. Just a little bit interested. Okay. But we appreciate everybody's time today. We hope this was engaging and helpful for you. And if there's anything we can do to help out in any way, please feel free to reach out. And I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their week. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Burke. Thank you. It was a pleasure doing this webinar with you. Thank you.
All right, guys. Appreciate your support. Take care.